Good evening, everybody. This is Raphael Graf from Data Color. Welcome to another webinar. Tonight we're going to talk about the highlights of the 2014 Creative Roadshows. Our speaker tonight will be Richard West. Good evening, Richard.
Hey Raphael, how you doing?
Fine,
Good to
thank
hear
you.
you.
How are you?
Yeah, all good, thanks. All good. Just
Great,
enjoying
great.
it being slightly drier over here in the UK.
Yeah, it's here. It's a little bit. It's way too warm this time of year here in Switzerland.
Yeah, indeed. Yeah, no skiing at the moment, huh?
No, no, not really. Okay, I
Anyway,
see we
should
have
we?
quite a few of attendees. Let me give you the screen,
Mhm.
hand over to you so that you will be able to continue with your presentation. All
Yep,
right.
cool.
Okay.
Cool. Right. Good evening, folks, and welcome to this session. Well, actually, let me just quick something out first before I do that. There we go. So we're gonna cover off, as Raf said. Raf said we're going to cover off some of the highlights from some of the roadshows we've done so far this year. Um, for those of you in the UK, you may well know that there's a new show this weekend, taking over from what was originally focused on imaging. That's the photography show. So if you do want to come along and ask questions and see people and press and touch the kit, etc., then we'll be at the show this weekend. We're running a data color stand. I'll be there on the data color theatre, which is on stand C35, but also presenting in the Adobe Theatre and in the Wacom Theatre as well. So come along and see us. We're going to look at some of the key things. Though we've done a couple of shows so far this year. One was a Creative Roadshow in conjunction with Nikon, and another was the SWPP convention. So for those of you who may or may not know those shows, highly recommend the SWPP as a society to get to know and to work with. They offer a lot of benefits for photographers, so really worthwhile getting involved with them and going along to see them. Have a look on the swpp.co.uk site for that. But what's been sort of two of the biggest takeaways? I'm going to run through a few different things. We were supposed to be joined this evening by one of our friends from Adobe. Fortunately, they've had to postpone that, so they're going to be joining us in April now. I think it's. Well, I have to check up the dates actually for you, or at least we'll notify you. But there's going to be a joint webinar with them in April. But two of the key things that came across from the joys of the show so far, from a data color perspective, there's been a lot of interest in something that's solved this perennial problem that whether it's RAW or whether it's whatever file format it is, you take a shot and you don't quite know what you're actually seeing because you've come away from your shoot and you don't know whether actually what you're seeing on screen now has got a cast to it. What's the right color basically? Is there can you cast your mind back and remember what in this case, in this example, the color of the background was? Was it a nice warm sort of sandstone background? Were you in front of a block of ice? What's the reference point? The reference point that you can use, and it's exactly for this reason that two key products of data colors have become very popular over the last few months. But one of them is the cube. Now this is a little cubic device. It's essentially the equivalent of a grey card, and it's something that fundamentally gives you something to aim for as far as your white point and your grey points are concerned. Perhaps if I quickly just sort of pop out of here, I can show you this in Photoshop basically. So here we are. This is opening up a shot here in Bridge basically, and taking a shot of the cube. The idea is, and it is a cubic three-dimensional little target. It's about, I would say, probably 4 centimeters by 4 centimeters sidewise, by 4 as well as it's cubic. And as you can see there, what you've got is actually a grey area at the top of the cube. That's actually an 18% grey. You've got two 4% whites here, and you've got a 4% black, or 95%, 96% rather, black, depending on which way you look at your colors, in the area around this hole. And also on the top of the cube, you've got a little scintillation ball to show you where you're getting out of gamut areas of overblown white. And also down here, you've got a 100% black area. And basically, you shoot it, and you shoot it in the lighting conditions that you're in. So let's say you're out and about. Just make sure that when you've got the opportunity to either, as you can see here, you can hang this, or you can actually tripod mount it using this. There's actually a thread down the bottom here, but that gives you the opportunity to pop it into your photograph. So great because it's pocketable. Great because it's very solid. It's a nice sort of device you can have in your pocket and just easily whip it out. Top tip on that, though, if you do put it in your pocket, make sure you put it in its little bag, a pouch that comes with it, because detergents in clothes can actually bleach this. So therefore, make sure that you don't mess up your tremendously good and useful device that you've got in the form of a cube here by actually just chucking it into your pocket without the bag that it comes in. As I say, all we need to do, I mean, for instance, in Camera Raw, I'll show you here, basically pop up into our white balance sampler. Now, we don't know whether there's a cast of this or not, but we do know that that's a white there. You just pick whichever is the lighter side of the cube here to actually set your white points. You can set it basically, that instantly takes out the cast there, as you can see. So therefore, that's a great way of having something, a known standard in your shoots that you can easily pop out and just take a photo of, just so you can set your color balance, or your gray balance anyway, for your shots. And then from here, basically, if you've got the add a gamut area notifications turned on, just by clicking on the top left-hand corners of the histogram at the top here, you can essentially slide this down so that we can actually just reduce our color here. If we had overexposed this, you'd actually see the burnout, for instance, in the white areas of the cube there, and that's the thing that you want to avoid, basically. So that's probably about the right sort of exposure. And therefore, to set our blacks, all we need to do is just drop down our black slider here, just until it actually fills the little black square, black circle on the bottom of the black square there. So that's the thing that needs to be 100% black. You should be getting detail in these areas, basically, because there is actually detail on the image. So that's the way to set up a preset within here, and basically you can then save that preset within your settings, such that you can save those settings and apply a preset, or save that as a preset within your workflow, and then basically you can essentially apply that time and time again to a batch of images. Now, it has to be said, it's probably a lot easier to do this sort of batch setting within something like Lightroom. Now, let's have a look at Lightroom, and the same scenario here, basically. So again, here we can say, okay, great, we can go in here and we can actually tune the colors accordingly. So we can turn on our gamut warnings again, and pop in here and effectively just go into the develop module, actually, and turn on those gamut warnings. And you can see here, actually, I already preset this up with the right sort of exposure in here. But the good thing about the joys of our lovely friend Lightroom is the ease with which you can actually just set that as a preset and apply that time and time again. So I can save that into my printer presets or my video presets, for instance, just by adding in a press button there, and then it can be easily and quickly applied across the whole range of your photographs in there. So we call that a cube. If I could type, that'd be good. Cube preset, and create that, and that's being applied into our user presets here, alongside some other calibrations which we'll come to in a minute. And all it means is if we have some other shots in here that we want to be applying that to, or shots in a different catalog, for instance, then basically we can go in there, we can choose those images in the different catalog and say, okay, we can apply that into those photographs there, and effectively be able to quickly and easily apply that preset just by quickly just clicking back into our develop area and hitting that cube preset. Boom. So there you can see how it straight away, because I left my gamut warnings on there, it affected it, so we've got blacks where we want the total 100% black there. We're just losing that and burn out in the clouds there, basically. And you can just turn that on and off in Lightroom using the J key there as well. So there's a quick way of setting your quick and very easy way of setting your gray balance as far as the cube is concerned. Now, as we said, just so that you get the gist of this, it really is painfully simple to use. And you can see here is we're giving you sort of perhaps a bit more opportunity to see the sort of size and perspective of the cube there when you put it in terms of the little drawings there, because that gives you a feel for the size of it. Really is very easily pocketable. As I say, key thing there is just to bring it out. And don't forget, you don't have to shoot that at the same time as your subjects. So let's say, for instance, you're doing a live shoot for sports or for something that is very fast and happening. You can bring out your cube before or after the event, as long as it's shot in the actual lighting conditions, and that's the key thing that you need to come to terms with and remember. And of course, just so you're aware, it's a very robust little device, this, made of a really solid, durable plastic, and effectively it's pigmented all the way through, so even if it does get scratched, the 18% grey remains 18% grey, the 96% black remains 96% black, so therefore it really is a very stable little device. Now that's been one of the key most popular things we've seen at some of the roadshows we've been doing so far this year, just because it's very simple, very inexpensive, but it really solves that instant problem and saves you having to carry around a grey card. Of course, one of the key things actually to say about this is actually that because it's three-dimensional, you've got one instant solution to a problem you get with a grey card, because grey cards have to be flat on to catch the light correctly and not get any glare, etc., etc. Whereas with this, it doesn't matter whether the lighting is coming in from one direction or even if it's changing. You always click on the lighter side to set your grey point or your white point. So therefore, basically, that's where this wins out, because it doesn't matter if that light's changed, there's always going to be a lighter side to this cube. So excellent device from that point of view. Now, that's one of the three sort of camera calibration devices that we've been seeing a lot of interest in. I'll quickly run through the second one, which also solves a major problem. Now, this is probably something very familiar to photographers who do weddings and multi-lighting shoots out there. So, classic example here, you've gone to do your wedding shoot, you've taken some shots outside, you've taken some shots in the actual church, some shots in the reception. Basically, you've got three different lighting conditions there. Maybe tungsten in one, daylight in another, normal room lights in another. Therefore, you get three different casts to your images. Now, again, this is something that perhaps you're thinking, well, the cube could obviously solve that. Well, yes, it could, but where it's important to get that color correct as well, not just the gray and white balance. If you want to get the whole range, then the big brother of the cube allows us to do this linearization across the whole range of our images, and not just of gray points, white points, and black points, but of the whole color range. So therefore, we can set our reds accurately to what they actually were at the shoot. And the way we're doing this is something called the spider checker. And this is, as you can see, a fairly large color chart, which the intention there is, again, that you shoot this either before or after the photo shoot. If you're at that wedding, you don't really need to get the bride to actually hold it for you. But basically, at some point after you've done the shoot in the particular lighting conditions, get this out and shoot it. Now, again, it's tripod mountable. You can attach the tripod to the bottom of it, and you can actually put your cube on the top of it as well, so you can combine the best of both worlds. Because this is one directional, you do need to angle it correctly to get the lighting right and to shoot it correctly. But the cube obviously sits in there and can combine with it to set that white point and grey point, basically. So a good combination of devices here. And let's quickly just pop out of here to show you how this works as well, because this actually comes with a bit of software alongside the device itself. So let's again pop over into Lightroom for this. So let's just go back into our library function in Lightroom. And let's go down to, actually I've already shot it in this particular shoot here. So as I say, I've shot it in different lighting conditions in this scenario. The important thing to do is to crop in so that once you've shot it, you've actually got as much of that screen filled as possible with the actual picture of the of the spider checker there. Then you go into your develop module within Lightroom, for instance, and effectively you've got the opportunity to grab your color picker, your gray, your white balance selector, I should say again. So pick that and always place it on the E2 square. Actually, unfortunately, I've managed to crop the 2 off there, but this is the E2 square. This second down square on this particular scenario. Now that will set the gray balance. You then need to check both your white and your black points here, basically. So you can go in here, you can just check this. This should be roughly a 4% white, so it's 96%. It's showing as a 96% white rather. And down here we've got something like a 4%. Yeah, so that's 3.8. So it's pretty good as far as what we're doing. Maybe just increase to change the blacks. We just drop down the black slider a little bit. If we wanted to increase the white and highlight end, we'd be using the exposure slider within either Lightroom or Camera Raw, for instance, here to do this. And then basically, once we've done that, we can actually then open this image up in the software that comes with the Spider Checker. So basically, pop in here and open in the Spider Checker app. And you can create a copy, or you can edit the original, doesn't really matter which. I like to create a copy. And then, as you see, that's just popping open a new version of it. What it's going to do, first of all, when it runs this, is actually check to see if there are any updates for the software, because well, the guys at Data Color really build in some good sense checking in here to make sure that you have got the up-to-date lookup charts and so on. And what you've got there is effectively you've got that picture we were looking at just now of the cropped Spider Checker there. And essentially, we've overlaid on there some known calibration spots. So in the same way that the Spider Cube has known colors, known parameters for the cube there, in this instance, not only do we know every one of those patches, but the software that comes with the Spider Checker knows those patches as well, so which is great, because that instantly means we're not just setting our gray balance here, we're setting on the right-hand side colors for general work, on the left-hand side colors more intended for portraiture, basically, in particular skin tones here, such that, great, I've now got some known standards which pretty much should give me a really good control and known shooting point, if you like, for all of my photographs. So basically, I can then choose to either use this within Camera Raw, Hasselblad Focus if I happen to have Hasselblad Focus, or within Lightroom. Now I'm using this within Lightroom. I've then got 3 different options. So if I'm doing sort of straight, general sort of work, leave it on colorimetric. It's an average, if you like. If I'm doing more portraiture, put it on the portrait adjustment here. And that just gives it a slight tweak to give you a better tonal range for portraiture, for skin tones. And likewise, if you're doing more color-rich work, maybe some packaging work for companies, etc., choose the saturation option, and that gives you that opportunity. And in fact, you can actually create calibrations using multiple versions here, but I'm just going to use the calibration for colorimetric here. And all I need to do basically is now just save that calibration. Give it a name. So I'm going to call this my, where are we, Tuesday night calibration. Obviously what you want to do is you give it the name of when you've actually shot that. So for instance, whatever the date was, let's say it was a wedding, so I call it wedding on 24th of February, morning shot or outside shot. So therefore you can give it a frame of reference and therefore apply the relevant preset in here. Now, if we then click on OK, great, I've now got effectively my presets saved. Now I can quit out of my Spider Checker software. Now, key thing here with external plugin software like this, unfortunately, a nuance of Lightroom is you need to quit that in order to get this to actually embed. So you can see there is not actually in our listing here. So let's just quit out of Lightroom. We won't bother backing up. Just quit that out and just reopen it quickly, just to see that that's been embedded into our list of presets. Quickly reopening that. Hopefully not too much of a delay for you tonight. The storms seem to have finished over the UK, so anyway, Tuesday night, there we go, that's the preset we use. You can see as I clicked on that, hopefully you can see just a change in the actual color chart here. So it's applied that calibration to correctly adjust those colors to be as they were shot. And of course, if we move up here, hopefully you'll be able to see, even over the powers of the internet, in the little thumbnail up here, as I scroll over these, you'll see some differences in the colors. You'll see some are more washed out, some are not. As we get to the more saturated ones at the end here, you can see definite differences perhaps between these. And that gives you the indication that, great, okay, the ones that I have shot in a particular lighting, so these were more in the saturated setup here. If I click on those, that'll boost those colors there. If I did have the same sort of subjects in slightly different lighting condition, then I could then just basically choose the next selection of shots and just apply the relevant profile to those. So therefore, basically, that probably wasn't the relevant preset actually in this case, as you could tell by the way it washed it out. But basically, it gives you the idea that okay, this is how we can linearize our colors. So different lighting conditions, we apply the relevant color calibration, color preset to those images, and away we go. So hopefully that's given you a couple of ideas of the joys of our color calibration solutions. Now, important to say, obviously, you've seen me using these in particular with Photoshop and with the Lightroom here. Now, as I say, tonight we were hoping to have with us one of the guys from Adobe, but unfortunately they couldn't be here. But they did want us to share with you that if you're not aware of it, and this is obviously pound pricing, local currency applies, there is a great bundle on at the moment. Now, this is, again, another one of the highlights of the roadshows we've been doing so far this year. The guys at Adobe launched the Photographers Bundle, as they call it, for Creative Cloud back in sometime the autumn of last year. It was so popular they've extended it, actually. And it continues to be a phenomenally good way in which you can get yourself the latest version of Photoshop and the latest version of Lightroom for the princely sum of £8.78 per month. And as I say, local currencies apply. So if you do want to get the latest iterations of the software, and therefore it's great for you using with the two solutions I've shown you there from Datacolor, really well worthwhile getting that. Key thing you get with these is opportunities to start getting into some of the other stuff that we'll be showing at the photography show, and that's 3D modeling as well. So really gives you a good opportunity to start working in the new and emerging marketplace that is 3D imaging, basically. I think it probably won't be a long while before all of us are producing 3D images of probably brides and grooms in a lot of cases, so that you can stick it on the very specific ones on the top of cakes, basically. But yeah, a nice little add-on service, and of course, again, color management becomes a very key part of that. One of the guys who will be doing a webinar with us in April is Richard Curtis. So if you want to find out more about the joys of the Lightroom and Photoshop Photographers Bundle there, then please drop him a line. He's given us his details for blogs and his online videos here. So we'll look forward to working with Richard in the joys of sometime in May. As I say, we'll have to check out what dates those are. Perhaps Raphael can do that whilst I'm presenting the rest of this session. So great. We've looked at the front end of our workflow here, folks. We've started talking about how we can capture things in camera correctly, and hopefully we've given you a couple of different solutions there that solve that particular issue. Both of them very robust solutions. Important to point out that the spider checker there, the bigger color chart, is bigger, basically. I mean, you saw it compared to the model. That's intentional, basically, because it gives you the opportunity to actually shoot it from a distance. And there are other color charts out there that you could use, but well, in fact, I think there's one which I've used in the past, but unfortunately, it's too small to hit in practice. I've found it, okay if you're in a studio, but if you're doing anything more active than that, and you're out shooting location shots, you've not got really a great hope of actually hitting it successfully. So, highly recommend that you you go for the spider checker as a great solution. Very robust as well, very solid device, and you can actually change the color cards in there. They are replaceable as well. There's a little fade checker inside the case there, which actually allows you to make sure that it's actually not faded, basically. I think with both of them, personal experiences would indicate that well, both of them lasted for years for me. I'd reckon you could probably get a good 10 years out of either device before they need either the cards changing in the case of the spider checker, or in the cube, maybe get another cube. But really I think as long as you take care of them, really got a great opportunity to have those as very affordable add-ons to your camera bag, basically. I mean, I've mentioned pricing on the photographer's bundle there for Adobe. I don't think I mentioned the cost on the cube and the spider checker. If memory serves me correctly, I think the cube is somewhere around, list price usually around £50. So probably about 65 euros or $700. And likewise, I think the spider checker is probably somewhere up there in the 120, £130 bracket. But if you're considering that over, as I say, I would expect to get about 10 years out of that, then really nothing in the grand scheme of things for anybody who wants to actually start correcting their work and getting it right. And of course, that's where we come into the workflow as far as our solution is concerned. Because of course, we talked at the moment about essentially stage, I suppose, 1 and 2, taking the photo and making sure that we've got something to aim for that we know is correct. The most important part in the workflow, it has to be said, is stages 3 through 5, i.e. color managing your screens. Because both ends of the workflow can be addressed can be addressed as a sort of peripheral solution. We've shown you a couple of great solutions there for handling that front end. We'll talk about a solution for handling that back end, that stage 6 and 7, where you're actually checking up your colors on print. But the most highly important thing that you can do in any workflow as far as color management is concerned is basically get your displays, your monitors, color corrected into an international standard. Because in this example here, we've got a situation where we've taken that photo there. It's a pretty neutral shot, as you can see. We've stuck it on a display, and it's coming out and it's looking green. Hopefully, it looks green for yourselves at home. If it doesn't, you need to get color calibrated on those displays. But basically, if you can see that that's got a green tinge to it, as you move across from stage 3 to 5 there, you see that we're actually, what we're doing there is we, the operator, are affecting our colors, retouching, using something like Photoshop or Lightroom, for instance, to actually cut back that green tint to get to something we think is exactly how we shot, because we've got a great memory, haven't we? But the trouble is it isn't. What you're actually doing there is looking for a cast on your display, and that's the thing you need to calibrate first. And of course, you think that's perhaps a problem solved if you can just calibrate that. Well, actually, there is that stage 6 to 7 as well, because the end result of just changing things on your screen, because the screen's got a cast, you end up with, you've removed the green tinge, so therefore, as you can see in stage 6 and 7, you get a sort of an orange or a reddy tinge due to color subtractive theory on your output print. That's if that back end is perfect. However, that back end might not be perfect as well, because you've got different calibrations that are applicable to printers as well. This is something that can really change dramatically based on stock or ink, or just not having all the inkjets in your plotter, for instance, cleaned out and working correctly. So we'd like to think that's the solution to that's the sole problem, wouldn't we? But of course, what we all know, I hope, or most likely anyway, is that we all have different devices nowadays for viewing things on. So it's not just a case of getting one display correct, it's a case of getting all those displays correct. And likewise, even if you get one display correct, one of the key things you really should be doing, get a calibration device, we'll tell you about them in a bit, but the key thing you want to be doing is making sure you're checking those on a regular basis. Because, for instance, the display I'm looking at the moment, it's a nice Retina display on a well-known fruit-based brand of computers, and I got this last year, and when I got it, it showed about 98% of sRGB. It now shows about 93% of sRGB, i.e., the actual LEDs in there, or whatever the technology is in the screen, is failing, basically. So you're getting an aging process. It happens to us, and it also happens to our computer equipment. So we'll come back to this later, but if you get a calibration device, make sure you use it. Get it out of the box. It's not good enough to just sit it on the shelf and say, hey, that was it, I've done my calibration. And of course, as I mentioned, you also need to be taking into account that back end as well. And we'll come back to the print side of things. Not many people print themselves nowadays, but we'll talk to you about how to address that if somebody else is printing out for you as well. So we've got these various different factors to take into account. And we talked to you about the different sorts of technology there. One of the key things we saw a lot of interest from on the roadshow so far is making this point to people. Effectively, the human eye is not a completely reliable thing. I should know I wear glasses, but I want you to have a look at this particular target here. Stare at the white dot, if you wouldn't mind, right in the center of the screen. Keep on staring at that. I'm just going to change the background color. Keep on staring at that white dot. Keep on staring at it. And then I'm going to change to this. And hopefully your screens have swapped over by now. And you should be seeing, if you've been staring at that white dot, on the left-hand side, in my case, I see it as a slightly redder picture. On the right-hand side, I see it as a slightly yellower or lighter colored picture. Now, they're exactly the same image. It's just what's happened here, and what we're trying to do is make the point to you that you can't really trust your eyes, rely on those to be the thing that you're using to calibrate your work. Because if you're doing that, it could be a bit of a concerning thing. I mean, I actually have two eyes that see things slightly differently anyway. One sees slightly red and one sees slightly yellow. So if you're using yourself as your own calibration device, it could be a bad idea. And it's not just the eyes, not just the cones in the eyes that are picking up colors and working in different fashions. If you have a look at this particular example, I'd ask you, okay, which is the lighter square, A or B? And most people, I think, would say it's B, because you can see, it's patently obvious. And yet, they're the same color, same tonality, pretty much spot on. And what we're seeing here is actually it's just a case of the brain interpolating this differently, because you're seeing shadows here, you're seeing the A and B being one being light, one being dark. It's fooling you. Your brain is playing tricks on you. So it's not just your eyes, it's your brain. So if you say to me that, okay, I can adjust the parameters on my screen and the light's going to be a happy place, I would say to you, don't, because you can't really rely on that. So there is a solution. There's a background to the solution. That's something called ICC profiles. So let's have a quick pop out of here and have a look at the theory behind what we're talking about here. And hopefully this will help some of you understand this better. Let's have a look at the joys of the different color spaces that we've got. So we've got effectively here, this is something called the color sync utility, and this is available on the Mac. It's built into the operating system. If you go into utilities in the applications folder, you'll see color sync utility in there. Now, I gather, I'm afraid I'm not very familiar with PCs, but I gather there's a similar solution on the PC, on Windows, called Color. So both doing similar sorts of things. Now, here what we're going to do is to show you, first of all, that's the Adobe RGB color space. And hopefully your screens are refreshing and you're seeing this large, is that a rhomboid shape? I'm not sure. This big shape anyway. And that is the viewable, or is a representation of the viewable colors you get in Adobe RGB. Of course, what we're really doing here is we're saying to you, okay, compare that with something else. So let's compare it with sRGB. So let's have a look at generic sRGB. Now you can see straight away there that shrank. Let's just click from a top-down view. Oops, top-down view. So there's Adobe RGB. There's sRGB. So you see a major difference in the color space here. I think the sRGB is about 70%, just over of sRGB is about 70% of Adobe RGB. So you can see that's a massively different color space here. This again plays a part in our advice to you on what you're retouching in, because basically, if you've got a display like my one here that only shows about 90-ish% of, let's just hold that for comparison, I'm going to show you. So where is my display? So my display is in here, so there's my laptop. So there you go. So you can see here exactly which end of my color spectrum is disappearing. That's this end, this side here. So I'm losing some greens and some lighter colors over that far side there. But basically, if I can only see roughly sRGB, then effectively I really shouldn't be retouching in that, should I? So sorry. If I shouldn't, what I shouldn't be doing, I should be retouching that. What I shouldn't be doing is saying, okay, great, let's retouching Adobe RGB. Because if I retouch in that, and I hold that for comparison, let's just overlay that screen again on there. Look at the massive amounts of color you just can't see. So I'm going in there, I'm saying I'm going to retouch in Adobe RGB, I'm going to work on my images in Adobe RGB, and I can't see it. Now, if, alternatively, one of the manufacturers we've had with us on the Roadshows, and again will be at the photography show, is ISO. If you see the ISO displays, their higher end displays have got something like 98% of Adobe RGB available to them as a spectrum, as viewable color. So great, that's the time to start working in Adobe RGB, basically. That's what our recommendation would be. No reason why you can't keep an original version in Adobe RGB or bigger color spaces if you so desire. But if you're going to be retouching, you're going to be printing out work in the color space you can actually see on screen. And then, of course, when you go to the joys of printing out CMYK, this is where we really see the difference between Adobe RGB or sRGB or the viewable color space on screens and what you can print. So this is a generic CMYK. Cyan, magenta, yellow, and black. That's the print 4-color print space. So what you see most magazines printed in. Now here, basically, you can see this massive change in colors here. But what softwares like Photoshop do is a very good job of mapping these colors in. Now they use things called relative colorimetric mapping, or using perceptual mapping, or perceptual rendering intents, basically, is what they're referred to as. Not wishing to get too technical for you, but basically what it means is you map the colors in. Now with relative colorimetric, it only takes anything that's out here, outside the color gamut, and maps it in to the actual edges, the nearest edge, if you like, of that CMYK color space. And the other one, perceptual, it actually maps or moves all colors by a similar amount. So therefore, actually, if there's a green here that's actually viewable initially and as part of the CMYK spectrum, it'll move it in, it'll budge it in a little bit. So it's two different ways in working, and you need to really just soft proof them in the two different color spaces to see what's going to work best for particular devices. And this is where we get down to what these things are. What we're looking at here is the description of those devices. And ultimately, what you need to do is A, color manage your screen so you can actually trust what you're seeing, and B, start producing these profiles, or getting these profiles, for the devices and the output environments that you're going out on. Now that output environment may well be purely sRGB, in which case, if that's the output you're going to be going out in, you should be working in it and proofing for that. Even if you started off in Adobe RGB and you can retouch that, soft proof in sRGB. But if what you're doing is, for instance, going out on some of these printers down here, then if I, for instance, showed you some web-coated presses, for instance, you see this massive chunk of dark area down here, instantly telling you, this is the shadow end of your images, this is the highlight, so it's instantly telling you that you're filling in that dark end. So you're really going to have to be careful with not adding in too much shadow detail into your images, basically. You're going to need to strip that back. This is where you need to be able to emulate how these images are going to print in these different devices. I'll, for instance, show you this. I've got one of my devices down somewhere a little bit further. There we go. So this is a plain paper printer, just no detriment on, or no slur on the codec intended here. This is just a quotes printer, if you like, or an office printer, not intended for imaging work, really. But basically, you can see here that the opposite happens. Here, you've actually got no black, no shadow detail. So it really doesn't matter how much you try and chuck in. When you emulate this, you're going to get a soft and wishy-washy washed out print, and we can show you this shortly. But basically, if you try and increase the black in there, it's never going to work. You're never going to be able to chuck in enough color, enough contrast or saturation, because the printer just doesn't have the ability to print that darker color. It doesn't have the gamut down here. So you're really going to struggle to actually get a good printed job out of there. And this is why this device, this little, it's built into the operating system, in, I believe, in Windows and certainly in the Mac, why this little app is very good for you. Because instantly you can get your profiles for your devices or profiles for other devices, throw them into it, and soft proof, see how things are going to come out. So that's the first process we're really sort of focusing on here, and that's the basis of what we're doing with color management. And that's why, effectively, we have a great solution for both your displays and your printers. Now, on the display end of things, we've got something which essentially is a calorimeter or color management device, some form of device that reads what's on screen. And that's called a spider. And this is what takes out all that uncertainty and unpredictability between what you're doing on one screen and another screen, basically. So therefore, the way it actually works is it allows you to run some software again that comes with it, and very similar to that spider checker software that I showed you, it has a selection of known colors that it runs in front of the eye of the device. So you can see the device sitting on the screen there. It's got an eye basically pointing towards, or a sensor pointing towards the screen. And it's a very simple piece of software that comes with it. It just tells you where to put the device, gives you a few starting tips, like making sure you're not sitting next to a bright open window, because that will affect the way you're seeing things. If you think back to the way I showed you that, the way your eyes can play tricks on you demonstration. So basically, use this device to actually read the colors that your screen's displaying. Because what will happen is it'll produce one of those little profiles that we've just been looking at. And that will tell your computer how that screen is displaying out of kilter with the standard, the known ICC, as it's called, standard profiles. And it allows you, therefore, to correct your screen. And the way it does it is essentially run the software. It runs the swatches. Takes about 4 or 5 minutes, probably 4 to 6 minutes. I'm told I should say, as opposed to 4 or 5, because some people think I'm saying 45. But basically, takes a few minutes to run, and you end up with a profile that instantly you can save, and it's instantly applied to your screens, be you on a Mac or a PC, basically Mac or Windows. And you can run the device on multiple screens as well, depending on the type of the version of the device you get, basically. And it just gives you that great opportunity to bring everything into a standard, and that even applies to things like tablet computers, iPads, Galaxy Tabs, etc., etc. You can download the free little app on either Google Play or the iTunes App Store here, and it gives you the opportunity to calibrate these devices as well. Now, it's not going to create a color sync profile in the same way that it's doing for computer screens, but it is, or not going to allow you to apply that profile anyway, but basically it is giving you the opportunity to color manage those devices as best as the manufacturers allow you to at the moment. So therefore, if you're using one of those devices, or even a phone, as your portable portfolio, then that's a great way of making sure they're all working. And of course, what we're looking at here is a transmissive device, basically. So anything that is transmissive, so that could be, for instance, displays, TV screens, rear projector screens, for instance, the joys of your tablets and your phones. All of these are emitting light, and therefore that's where the spider can actually read that light, and can be set up to do so. Now, the joys of it are, okay, that won't actually, and what Datacolor do, they don't actually provide a device that will read reflective color, i.e. printed work, but we'll come to something else that does that in a little bit. But effectively, this gives you the opportunity to work on your color calibration, the most important part. That's that step in the middle, if you recall, where we were getting that cast there, that we were wasting our time retouching, basically. And in this instance, the spider comes in 3 different varieties. The Elite's sort of high-end device for being able to sense across a screen, make sure that you've got uniformity across the screen. The Pro is the sort of more popular photographer's choice for doing multiple screens on one machine. So if you happen to have a computer with a screen on it, maybe a laptop, and an external screen, you can match those two screens up using a Pro. The Elite does the same, by the way, so the Pro's sort of mid-range, if you like. Elite is the top of the range. The Express is the entry level, but still a great device. And the advantage here is it gets you going on this process. Now, the downside is you can't do multiple displays on that, and you're limited in some of the other parameters that you can work on there. But if you really want to just start off in the joys of color management, then the Spider 4 Express is a great way of doing that. And there's also a promotion that the guys wanted me to tell you about running at the moment. And so that's the Express, available for €79 at the moment from Datacolor's online store. We'll give you the URL for that later on. But basically that's the equivalent of, well, it says here about $67.99 in UK pounds. I have to say I checked out the conversion rate before I came on the air tonight, and it was about £65 tonight. So key thing with this is it's only available using that discount code, the lowercase s for lowercase x 79. And that's on the online store, the Datacolor online store. So make sure you go to the Datacolor store. So we'll give you the URL for that a little bit later as well. But you can track it down from datacolor.com. So that solves our main problem, doesn't it? So stage 3 through 5, being able to know that when I'm retouching, I'm actually retouching my colors and getting a result that other people can see. So if I've got my screens there, I'm trusting how I'm seeing them, then I can go in there and I can retouch for my end result. So that takes that problem. I can instantly remove that green tinge, and I can say, okay, I'm going from camera through to the screen, retouching, and in particular, if I've got my spider checker or my cube there, I've actually linearized, so that's good. The only question I've got still is at that print end, what's going on there? And of course, we do have a solution for that side of things as well. And this is where we've got the joys of spider print. Now, I mentioned earlier on the spider 4, as it is now, that's only handling transmissive color, so therefore color coming out of screens emitted from a different device. The spider print, specific device, totally different algorithms and maths in there, and also has a light beaming device. So essentially, as you can see here, what we're doing is we're actually printing out a selection of known color swatches. So again, it comes with software, but the software this time gives you a selection of color patches that you can actually print out and then read the colors of. So the way the device works here is it has a little light emitting device, and it also has a sensor in the same device. So you put the little plastic guide on top of the printouts, and then move it down a line. Just press the button at the start of each line and roll it across. Just a smooth action. And effectively, that will read those colors. And the software that comes with it is very intelligent. It clicks and it lets you know when you've done a line. It gives you a big tick, and very, very simple to use, basically. You just move down a line at a time and create that profile for each different stock and each different paper and each different print that you may have. And this gives you the opportunity to produce your own profiles, print profiles, i.e. output profiles. Now, the question there is, okay, what do I do with them? Well, in the case of, for instance, actually let's show you in the case of Photoshop, for instance. So Photoshop has the opportunity to emulate or soft proof. You can go into the proof setup here, and we can actually set up your proofing colors. Basically, you can choose within your preferences what you want to be using as your proofing environment, and then with your proof colors turned on or off using the as it says there, Command Y or Apple Y. Basically, that gives you the opportunity to soft proof. So what I'm showing you there, hope you catch up. So that's the proof colors are applied, and that's with it off. That's with it applied. What I'm showing you there is actually the ability to see what this picture would look like if I printed it out on that same DeskJet printer that I've got at home in my office for printing out letters and photocopying stuff. So not really a great result. But this is where, and I'll just show you the same process, if you like, within Lightroom. So in Lightroom, for instance, we can take a particular shot and we can say, okay, let's actually soft proof this shot. So let's choose something a bit more artistic that I've been working on. And let's go into the develop module again, and let's just click on soft proofing, basically. And that's going to give you, and if I click on the Y key here, you can see the before and after. So there's what you should be seeing that image like. That's how you've wanted to see it. And on the right-hand side is how you are seeing it. And that's because what we're applying again here is that same Kodak profile here. So you saw it earlier on. There you go. So you can see how we can change that. So if I wanted to, for instance, see how this is going to look in sRGB color space, I just click on the sRGB color space there, and it should obviously look exactly the same, because strangely enough, I'm retouching in sRGB on an sRGB screen. So this is exactly where you can go into these images and soft proof that output device. Now, of course, in this instance, we know that actually there's probably not a great deal I can do to actually redeem this image. I can, for instance, increase my contrast a bit, perhaps, and as you can see, it allows you to make a proof copy rather than work on the original here. So let's just quickly do that within Lightroom. Very simple scenario to do that. And what I might want to do is perhaps increase, in fact, probably want to increase contrast a lot, maybe drop the blacks down a bit, and the shadows perhaps as well. See, we really are going to end up kludging this up as opposed to actually producing something that should be a good end result. Because, of course, we know already, we've already checked this in the color sync utility, that this profile, this printer, isn't very good. It's not going to handle that shadow end. So we're really never going to get from there, where we started, to anything like it, because unfortunately we just don't have enough shadow black capability within that printer. So that's where absolutely, you'd be great to be able to just drop it into Lightroom or Photoshop and see that, but of course you can get ahead of the game using things like the color sync utility and color there, just to soft proof your profiles. Now, hopefully you're not going to be trying to use printers like this that you can't actually get a good result on. But of course, what you might be wanting to do is use external print services. So that's one of those frequently asked questions that crop up in conversation. And that's the joys of, okay, I don't print out anymore. I use somebody else to print out. And so therefore, that's lovely, isn't it? Because you can rely on them. Well, unfortunately, folks, no, you can't. Not all the time. There's some very good print houses out there. And then, of course, there's some people who don't actually know anything about color management or don't bother doing anything about color management. Best advice to you is, if you're working with an external print company, ask them for their color profiles. You can then instantly drop them into color or color sync utility and see, okay, which of these inkjet plotters, presses, whatever it may be that they've got, are any good. And if you know that something is going to be particularly inappropriate to your sort of work, you're doing, maybe a model shoot with a lot of highlighting, and you're really going to have loads of highlights in your images, and they're offering you printing out this on something that has no highlight detail, then check that profile first and say, sorry, I'm not going to use that. And if they don't have any alternatives, don't use them, because you'll be wasting your time and money again. So that's the better scenario. The slightly less good scenario is when companies turn around and say, don't worry, we're color managed, you can trust us. Now, this is where, provided that you are color managed, so therefore on screen you can see and you can trust how your retouching is correct, then good, you're ahead of the game. It gives you the opportunity to soft proof, as you've just seen in Lightroom or in Photoshop, for instance. And when you're doing that on a screen that you can trust is viewing correctly, anything you do to those images, theoretically, if you're being told that's they're color managed, that's how it will come out. Now, as I say, you'd be far better off to be able to get some profiles from those companies, because as you can see, some print devices are going to be so far out from what you can see on screen. You really need to emulate that rather than just rely on them getting fairly good at printing it out. But that's the options for you folks. So let's hope that you're working with good companies that can actually provide those printer profiles. So we mentioned earlier on the joys of finding out more about our devices and so on. Didn't get the opportunity, as I say, to show you the 3D and video side of things tonight, but we will be doing that at the photo show, and we'll also be doing a follow-up webinar from the photo show, as mentioned, with Richard Curtis from Adobe. So therefore, you'll be able to get to see that next time. Key thing, as far as any form of imaging is concerned, you need to get that screen. Above all else, you need to have the screen that you're retouching on, working on, your main screen in particular, but others if you're using them, correct. Because there's absolutely no point in you retouching anything if you can't trust what you're seeing. And be that video, be that 3D imaging, be that printing it out yourself, or be that sending it to a website, or Behance, the solution that's built into Creative Cloud, for instance, for publishing your websites. Then basically, you need to trust what you're doing on your screen. And if you can see that, and you can trust what you're seeing there, and therefore you're not wasting your time in retouching, then great. You're in the best situation to actually be retouching. Add in the other end of the other two ends of the process, that front end camera calibration or the back end printing calibration, or get somebody to supply you the print profiles, and you're in a very, very good, very strong situation as far as color management is concerned, and not wasting your time doing things you shouldn't be doing. Now, I also mentioned the where you can order stuff. So if you can just see the URL there, it's spider.datacolor.com/orders. So that's the store. You can see it's actually under the buy tab on the Datacolor site. But as I say, spider.datacolor.com/orders, and that's where, for instance, we've got those. Or they've got those offers on the Spider Express. If you want to get into this, as you can see there, normally 117 euros. But as mentioned, 79 euros at the moment. So massive saving as far as the Express is concerned. Great way of getting those colors correct on the screen. So don't forget that. Let's say about somewhere around 65 to 68 pounds in the UK, including that. Now, hopefully tonight's been educational. I know that we've been asked in previous webinars, unfortunately, where we've sort of crammed a lot into a little amount of time. Hopefully we've given you more of a starter guide on how to get into color management tonight. However, if we've not covered all the answers to your questions, then please download the Spider ebook. Now, it's a great little book written by one of our esteemed technical team. Very excellent load of information in there about everything from getting focus right on your cameras through to how to get Photoshop and Lightroom working perfectly with your workflow. So therefore, go and download the ebook, and it's free. So that's the English URL. If you go to the Datacolor site, you'll obviously be able to find other language versions if appropriate as well. Other things that you might want, if you want to see stuff in use, we've got a whole bunch of videos, both cartoon and real videos of how to use the joys of Datacolor's solutions, and a mixture of other, webinars and recordings of webinars and other usage of different softwares alongside this. So Photoshop, for instance, tips and tricks and so on, all on our YouTube channel. So go to the YouTube channel if you want to see more from us, or don't forget, come to the photo show this weekend in Birmingham. That's running from the 1st through to the 4th. So I'll be there, as I say, stand C35 if you're going to come and say hello for me and the team. And likewise, some of those questions that may not get a chance to get answers tonight, we are going to open up in a few seconds for a questions and answers session. But if we don't manage to answer all your questions tonight, then please drop onto our support line, or give the guys a call on the phone line there, or go onto the website and go onto the ticket support line there, basically, and you'll be able to pop your questions into us and ask those very same questions. So, folks, at this point, I'm going to say, well, thank you very much for being on board. We are going to be popping open the lines now, or at least the chat line now, in order to enable you to ask those questions. So hopefully, though, it's been an illuminating session tonight, and I look forward to speaking to some of you again and answering your questions now, or potentially seeing you at one of the shows coming up. We will also be running, as I say, a roadshow sometime in the near future, hopefully near you, as part of our ongoing creative roadshows, basically. So, but with that, I'll say to Raf, okay, it's 8 o'clock. We've run to the end of our time. Do you want to take over the screen again, Raf, and open up the questions and answers side of things? And
Well,
if anybody's got
I
any
will
questions
open
out
up the
there,
questions in a few minutes right now. Thank you very much, Richard. Before we open the general questions, we have also, we have these short questions, which I start right now. So the attendees will be able to reply if their expectations have or have not been satisfied.
cool. Seem to be doing all right at the moment.
Yeah.
I'm just checking the dates here whilst they're doing that, and also just to say that the next webinar with Adobe is on May the 6th. So that's one to note in your diaries. And that'll be the follow-up, or one of the follow-ups. We've got 2 follow-ups planned, actually, one in April and one in May. But the one in May the 6th, is going to be the one with Adobe, so you'll be able to find out more about the Photoshop features and what they're doing around 3D imaging and printing at that point.
All right.
Cool. Well, we seem to have catered for people's interest there.
100%. And let's see regarding the time frame. All right, most people think it was just right. For a few, it has been too long, and for a few, it has been too short.
Too
Well,
short. Oh well.
yeah.